Good evening. My name is Tom Keesing, and I'm a volunteer with Wings for Life. I'm filling in for our accomplished director and executive, Ann Edinburgh Sweet, who's on a business trip. Wings for Life is an organization working with the incarcerated and their families while they are in prison and once their prison term is completed. One cannot underestimate the critical need to provide this outreach. Wings for Life's mission is to reduce the probable return of the formerly incarcerated to their criminal thinking just to survive on the outside and not go back to their life of crime that landed them in prison in the first place. They and their families need so much encouragement, counseling, mentoring, and they really just need a chance to rejoin their community with dignity and respect. It all starts with finding a job, and that has never been more challenging for any of us, but if you've been incarcerated, it is nearly impossible to find one that provides enough income to survive and take care of yourself and your family. We all wonder today what we can do to reduce crime in our communities. Wings for Life is a program that reduces crime and restores families to become contributing and responsible members in the community. Returning from prison to society is one of the most challenging obstacles a person and their family can face. Humanity alone calls us to join them and provide the life skills and support to succeed in their reentry, restore their lives, and become contributing citizens. Our responsibility to our community challenges us all to find ways to reduce crime, and Wings for Life is one of the best solutions we have to achieve this critical result. Our speaker tonight is knee-deep in achieving just the results we've been talking about. Morgan Jaco is the Reentry Director for the New Mexico Corrections Department. She began work for the New Mexico Corrections Department in January of 2020. She started her career in correction in 2007 in Alaska and has worked directly with individuals incarcerated within institutions, community residential centers, and with individuals post-release out into the community. Her passion is reentry and collaborating with all the vital stakeholders within the community. Within New Mexico Corrections Department, Morgan oversees programming which includes adult education, cognitive classes, post-secondary education, and vocational classes. Morgan is also overseeing pre-release efforts and the coordination of care between the institutions, the field, and the much-needed service providers throughout the community. Morgan was born in Madison, Wisconsin, and lived in Colorado, Virginia, West Virginia, prior to living in Alaska for 12 years, and before coming to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to begin the exciting work that she's doing at New Mexico Corrections. And without any further ado, Morgan, please join us.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I thank you for that warm welcome, and I really appreciate the chance for New Mexico Corrections Department to be represented tonight on this platform. As he stated, I am extremely passionate about this work and feel very fortunate to be in New Mexico doing what I love doing. So with that, we'll just get started. I have an overview of the presentation in front of me right now. We're going to discuss programming options within NMCD, case planning, coordination of care, community service providers, and also future initiatives that we're working on. all of that's really important when we're discussing success upon release and what that looks like for an individual that's returning. So with that, we'll get started. Looking at programming options within NMCD, we have a variety of options available to different individuals that are within our system. Each program, each facility, I should say, has different options, so it really depends on where you're at and your eligibility and what you are recommended for. But programming is a key piece to anyone's incarceration. And at the beginning of the incarceration period, I always say reentry starts on remand. So reentry is really important from the day that you walk in the door all the way through towards the exit. So with that, we have a basic adult ed classes. And as he stated, we have adult ed, cognitive, behavioral health, post-secondary, vocational, and we'll kind of touch on all of those. But in terms of our adult ed program, it is driven by the ILA statute, which is the Inmate Literacy Act. And what that mandates is that anyone that is not that does not currently hold a high school diploma, that they are required to participate in education programming to earn a high school equivalency credential while they are incarcerated with the New Mexico Corrections Department. So this applies to inmates that have 18 months or more remaining on their sentence or less than 10 years. They can be exempt due to medical, developmental, or learning disability. But really, we are trying to get as many people in the door that do not have a high school diploma into those seats so that we can have more people earning high school equivalency credentials. Unlike traditionally within the past where we're really looking at people passing tests and completing and earning a high school equivalency and moving on, we're really trying to make sure that the skills earned within the classroom are based off a career pathways initiative and that has some career technical education components to that. So that includes contextualized learning and different aspects of for adult learners to actually get into the workforce in a different capacity than when they were first came into the system. So up on the screen, I have a couple numbers, which is our fiscal year 20, we had 1,881 students enrolled in adult education alone. With the year to date, which is fiscal year 21, we have 1,223 students enrolled. And so I should mention that this is all during COVID. We have had barriers like the rest of the entire country, the world, but we are continuing to move forward. We are continuing to make great strides within our classrooms, and we have continued programming the entire time. So a shout out to all of the education teachers, all of the institutional folks within the facilities making this happen because it could not happen without them. And the inmates that are still getting up and working every day, trying to better themselves for their eventual release. So adult ed is inclusive of education classes. Like I said, towards earning a high school equivalency credential, it's really looking at reading, writing, math, social studies, and science. We've got the high set, and we also have one facility working on GEDs as well. Both are geared towards high school equivalency credentials, but high set also provides a paper-based option. So some of that works better for individuals that are still learning technology, like the rest of us. So from adult ed, we also have cognitive classes within our program, within the institutions. Cognitive classes, just in general, are aimed to address thinking errors, impulsive thoughts, and that type of, some of those criminal thinking errors that occur and get people inside. So it's looking at addressing thoughts and different emotions and developing different skills to deal with issues that arise. We offer MRT courses, which are specialized in DV and parenting, also the general MRT course. We have Thinking for Good, Charting a New Course, Challenge Series, Cage Your Rage, just a bunch of different options. The cognitive classes are under the education department, but also we have behavioral health department that includes some behavioral health within their courses as well. So we've got multiple options for cognitive classes within the corrections department. We also have CTE and vocational classes. CTE stands for Career Technical Education. That's looking more at those hands-on classes. We have welding, automotive, building trades, barber, HVAC, a bunch of different options. Year to date, we have 130 students enrolled. To get into our vocational classes and our cognitive classes, since most of these are college-based, there's the eligibility requires that you have a high school equivalency credential, and so that's also an incentive to get that done so you can move on to other programming options. Right now, we are working on the NCCR certification and training for our instructors. That will get a more cohesive curriculum across all of the institutions. So one barrier that we currently experience within corrections is someone is transferred from a different institution, from one institution to another, and that they cannot complete a class unless it's offered there. So we're really looking at that, at programming options that are consistent across the institutions so that that barrier is reduced. So we also have the CDL and CAT simulators, which are new, up and coming. We're still trying to get those online, but that really aligns with our career pathways education, and really hoping to get some more skills within the classrooms. And those simulators are pretty cool and fun to play around with as well. So it's a really great education experience that we are hoping to get moving forward. So we also have post-secondary programming. Post-secondary programming's college options. We have, we're one of the only systems across the US that currently pay for students to enroll in college. We contract with universities across the state. We work with Mesa Lands Community College, the New Mexico State University. We've had previous partnerships with Eastern New Mexico, and we're talking to Santa Fe Community College about culinary arts program and Central New Mexico. And so we're continuing to look at any option that's available to help bring opportunities and different learning experiences to individuals that are incarcerated. We also work with Ashland, which is a university not within state, but it is a second chance Pell Grant provider. And so what that means is that our inmates can attend Ashland University for free through the second Pell Grant, and they receive tablets to work on their schoolwork. So one thing, it's really good for the ability to keep learning technology, but also it's free free for the student. So it's a plus in that way. And with the expansion of the second chance Pell Grant, that's really hard to say, with the expansion of that grant, it will really increase the capacity, the eligibility of all of our inmates within the system to be able to attend school. So this will help reallocate some of the funding that we're utilized now towards other things, towards rehabilitation and other opportunities for inmates. So that's a plus, but we will also just continue to expand out on the relationships that we have with different schools so that they can get on board with the Second Chance Pell Grant. Some of the components that they have is they have to offer credentials to students to prepare them for high demand fields that are accessible to people with criminal records. They have to ensure programs provide students with assistance transferring credits if they get released prior to completion. And they also have to require reentry services for individuals that are transitioning out into the community. So to address things like housing and employment and other types of treatment. So those are really three great requirements that we can just continue to add on to the different providers that we're working with. So we look forward to the Second Chance Pell Grant expansion. Within our system, we also have behavioral health and substance use programming. We have a great bureau that is dedicated to this, and so I'll just touch on this here since it's not my avenue, but I wanted to mention it during programming options. We have substance use programming of all types, any sort of level of care that you need, residential, intensive, outpatient, aftercare. We have transitional living mods so that you're living within the community and following codes of what's going on within that community itself. And so there's groups on anger and trauma and depression and anything that you can imagine for behavioral health services we have within our system. We also have all levels of mental health care. And to top it off, we have a couple dog programs across the state. So the dog programs are there not only for trauma, for coping, for the connection, a connection to something, empathy issues and not issues, but empathy to learn that type of behavior. And so it also helps with a training, a skill that can be developed to take out to the workforce as well. But the dog programs seem to make everybody happy, and it makes sense within a facility. So one thing I also want to hit on is our volunteer programming options. We have a ton of programs within the system, but programming is just one piece of the puzzle. And so one piece of the puzzle for someone to be successful upon release. So we could do all the programming inside, but what happens when they get out? And so other pieces of the puzzle include individuals, right? We need volunteers, we need the community stakeholders, nonprofits, the treatment providers, housing providers, employers, everybody coming to the table to help work with individuals that are transitioning out. So that's another big piece of the puzzle, are just the community at large. Within our volunteer programming, due to COVID, we could no longer have individuals come into the facilities. So we have turned that into an opportunity for virtual programming options. And it's been great. Our IT team has really worked hard to keep programming continuing and to really look at creative ways to get what we need for the individuals inside. So we have NA sessions, yoga and meditation sessions going on, alternative to violence, wings, like what we're doing here. I know we've got a group of inmates that are listening tonight. We hope to get that across the state. We also just had Wings go in to do a volunteer workshop last week where there was development, communication skills and employment skills and all of that presented at a workshop to inmates, all virtually. We're also doing a New Mexico, the public broadcasting system, the Hemingway project, where we're working with inmates on that. So there's a lot of different options for volunteer programming, which is still so vital to get people connected with the inmates pre-release so that they have someone to talk to and connect with post-release. I did want to provide a shout out on the bottom of this PowerPoint. I do have that a job was just posted for community outreach and faith-based coordinator. That job was posted on Saturday, and I'm looking for someone to come and work with the department who wants to do exactly what I'm talking about. Work with the community, help with outreach efforts, help expand our options for opportunities for inmates. We're looking at anybody who wants to really come in and be part of this stakeholder team. And so this position just posted. We are ideally looking for someone with lived experiences, with a community peer support worker training, and someone that can come in and just have a positive attitude and work with us to reduce recidivism is the ultimate goal. So I'm really excited that that job just posted. I meant to put my name and number on the back of this slide or my email address, but I didn't, but I'll make sure to state it before we leave here tonight. So I wanted to talk a little bit about case planning and why is case planning important? Case planning, really helps build a foundation for someone's release, for someone's incarceration period. It is the roadmap. When I say reentry starts on remand, that is when a case plan should be started to be developed for that individual. A dynamic case plan that goes from day one all the way out post-release. So case planning within corrections is really developed through an R&R assessment. So what is an R&R assessment? An R&R assessment is a risk needs responsivity assessment. Really, it's an evidence-based tool that it assesses an individual's criminogenic needs and risk of recidivating. So a COMPASS, we within New Mexico utilize the COMPASS assessment, which is the R&R assessment. And so the COMPASS assessment measures both static and dynamic factors. Static factors could be anything from like age, criminal history, to dynamic factors such as employment and housing, because those things change, right? And so we build case plans built on addressing those identified needs within that stem from the assessment piece. The compass looks at many, many, many things. There's hundreds of questions. But these are things such as education level, family, housing, peer relationships, substance use, anything, all of those variables that make a difference when we're talking about someone getting released into the community. What does that look like, and how do we help address those individual needs that are established? Really, when you look at it, it's looking at stabilizing and destabilizing factors. So healthy relationships, employment, stable housing as stabilizers, drug use, no transportation to get to the job that you need. Those are destabilizers. And so we look at how do we stabilize an individual to continue to walk them down this path. So within corrections currently, the probation and parole division utilizes the core compass assessment, but that's post-release. So one thing that we're really working on is bringing them pre-release, bringing compass assessments into the system pre-release. We are currently starting at the 60-day out mark, so we can formalize a case plan for individuals that are releasing into the community. We're working with the probation and parole officers, so there's that warm handoff and there's that transition out. But we will be getting to upon intake, and so eventually all of our programming will be, all of our program referrals will be based off the assessment when they realize, when they assess an individual's needs and then can recommend them to that. And then it will be, someone will get a reentry assessment 6 months to the door. So that really hones in on specifics to what they need for a successful release into the community. And then post-release, there'll be another updated assessment once things change and they get out to the community. So it's a dynamic case plan that follows that individual. And it's really built off of goals and then different tasks that are associated with how to meet those goals. And it looks at the progress. And really, it's something that not only can the probation officer follow, but the individual that is on supervision can follow the progress through this case plan and make it to the end is the ultimate goal. So when we're talking about case planning, we're also talking about coordination of care, right? Because how do we know what someone needs if we don't provide an evidence-based assessment to start with? And so coordination of care is really important. It looks at, really it's all about communication. What is communicated not only from the individual that is releasing the inmate, we need to hear from them. They are the ones at the center of the case plan. They are the ones whose life this is. And so many times we're sitting here checking boxes and just pushing people through. That is not what we're doing anymore. It needs to be individualized. It needs to be one-on-one and understanding what each individual needs, what each individual wants, and how they envision their future looking. And so this coordination of care helps with that. So that we can provide those referrals to outside providers. We can talk to them about their housing needs and then work with the housing providers. And all of this is really important to do pre-release. When we're referencing coordination of care, it's talking about an individual during the most vulnerable time. So that coordination pre to post release. People are most likely to recidivate within the first 6 months of releasing. And we have high absconding rates in New Mexico. So how do we get people to stay on course, to really engage with the probation and parole officers on the outside, to want to be successful? And part of that is having buy-in from the beginning. And so working with individuals on what their coordination of care looks like and what they envision, we hope will help us with more success once they get out into the community to keep people longer. Once you get in the front door, that first day, sit down and have the conversation with them, connect, get them back that second time, the third time. The longer people are on supervision, the more likely they are to be successful once they are able to become stable and really work through that case plan that's identified. So a coordination of care model really looks at wraparound services and ensures that there's a safety net, because people are going to fall. Everyone falls, but it's how we get up. And so how do we get up in a different way, and how do we help people so that it's just a minor speed bump and they don't just fall down into this crack? Speaking of cracks, one time I was talking to some men in Alaska, and we were discussing this exact concept, coming out and falling down a crack. And I had some man stand up and say, you know what, Ms. Jaco, I really feel like I need to speak up and say that it is more than just a crack. This is like a gorge, a massive crevice that when we fall, we can't just stand back up and just dust off our knees. And so I really want to recognize that when we're talking about a safety net and we're talking about wrapping services around folks, it's to prevent them from falling down some cliff, some canyon, some gorge, whatever we want to call it. Because that crack, when people fall through the cracks, it's a lot more serious than that. And so what I want to do is make sure that we have those safety nets available to help build people back up and continue them along that path, because it's a hard path. And I really appreciated that guy telling me that day, because sometimes from my point of view, it's just, okay, you messed up, let's get on a different road. But there's all those other factors to why that individual did something. And there's so many different variables that are associated with that. And so it reminds me sometimes when I'm talking about cracks that people fall through, that these are crevices and massive gorges that people are falling into. So that's why coordination of care and the community is so important. I also want to speak about peer support. We have a lot of peer support efforts going on right now within corrections. I'm super excited about it. I think that, a lot of people don't want to hear from talking heads like me. They want to hear from someone that's been in their shoes. They want to hear from someone that has walked down that path before, that understands their struggles. And so that's also a reason why we love to bring volunteers in, community providers in for in-reach purposes, because inmates listen to outside folks. I mean, they are incarcerated. They're listening to people all day, every day, the staff within the institutions. So when we have outside people come in, it really helps present the information in a different way and gets people more engaged in that process. Same with peer support. We have a couple different peer support type options within the facilities. We have peer mentors, we have tutors that are working within the classrooms and helping inmates that are studying and different projects like that. We have seminary workers that have gone through seminary courses through a university, and they are now mentors. We also have community peer support workers, which are the CPSWs. We trained a group of them from Central New Mexico in partnership with OPRI, which is the Office of Peer Recovery and Engagement. And we are working on another set of training for the women at Springer, and then we will just continue to expand those efforts. CPSW training is not only great for the culture inside, right? Because once you have peer support and you just start talking different language and you start working with people in a different capacity, and you have individuals that are working with staff differently. So it helps change the culture within, but it also helps give that individual that gets that training opportunities on the outside. We work with CPSWs on the outside. They can, it's a viable job for someone that's just coming out. And if it's work that you like to do, then you get to continue to do something that you're passionate about, which helps. We also work with Project Echo, which is a fantastic program out of UNM, and we have had Project Echo inside for over a decade now. I should have looked at the numbers. I might be quoting a little off, but we have about over 14,000 inmates that have been trained through tele-echo sessions. And so inside, they're really looking at medical information and different outreach about prevention for Hep C and AIDS and different opportunities to learn about that. Now, outside of the facilities, we now have community peer educators that are working directly with Project Echo and the probation and parole department. So every week we have an average of 25 referrals stemming from a probation and parole officer to a community peer educator so that they can then work with the individual on the outside. And these referrals are for everything under the sun. So whether it's employment, education, medical assistance, transportation needs. So these community peer educators are taking them in and working with them in that capacity. It's just another layer of support that we can help provide people. Eventually, once we're able to all meet in person again, we'll have more expanded peer support opportunities. They might be meeting within a community center or a rec center, or they might have one at a probation and parole office to assist with someone that needs help right then. And so we're looking at a lot of different opportunities for peer support options. And like I said, it's just a great opportunity to connect people for more assistance upon release. So when we're talking about assisting people upon release, I would be remiss without really talking about some of our community service providers and who we work with across the state. And so we have providers that provide substance use treatment, counseling, parenting classes, housing, food. I know during this time we've assisted people with rent and utility assistance. We've really we are there to help individuals with whatever their needs are. And so our community corrections unit strives really hard every day to ensure that we are getting groceries to people, food cards. They've gotten people work boots. What do they need? And so once again, it goes back to that individualized plan and working with each individual for what they need at that moment. And so meeting people where they're at. We have approved providers, which just means that individuals are approved to work with them, and it'll count towards some sort of requirement that they might have on probation or parole. For instance, an approved substance use provider, if they go there for treatment, then that will count towards their conditions to complete treatment. Now we also have contracted providers, which are service providers that we contract with to provide those services as well. And we have services across the state. Granted, the vast majority of them are here in Albuquerque, just based off the number of individuals that release into this community alone. So, on to the why. Why? I guess I could argue a million different reasons as to why we should care. I think one thing is education. Programming is so important because here in New Mexico, we already have low education levels when we're coming in, when we have individuals across the state with low education levels, including the individuals that are coming into our system. And so they're already at a disadvantage when they're incarcerated, and providing programming just will help provide tools necessary to succeed upon release. So I want to give everybody the opportunity to engage in these programming options if they want to, if they can. Anything to help someone release into our community. As that second bullet point states, by far the vast majority of them are releasing into our communities, so I want them to be prepared to become stable, contributing members. I want to give them opportunities for employment and give them opportunities for housing options so that they can become stable. One thing I always say is I'd rather have people bagging my groceries than stealing my groceries, but that takes somebody providing them the opportunity to get the job in the first place. And so we really have to look at it from that perspective. In terms of the cost of incarceration, it's expensive, right? The cost of incarceration is pricey. On average, our system runs at about $122.85 a day, around $44,000 a year. And so that's inclusive of all of our institutions with an average. Of course, it costs more to house someone at a high security versus a low security. It costs less for someone to be enrolled in one of our residential treatment programs. It costs less for someone to be out on supervision within the community. When we're talking about those housing providers and the different contractors across the state, on average, a housing bed within the community is $30 a day, with our top being around $50 a day. So that's still cheaper than having someone be incarcerated. So with our recidivism rate going down, but we still need to address it, and all of this helps address the recidivism back into our recidivism rates for our communities. So education, programming, helping them with opportunities and being prepared to be able to come into our communities in a different capacity. So that is the why. So I just kind of wanted to touch really quickly on a couple of our upcoming things for reentry, for corrections. I've got some pilot sites up there that we are beginning to really focus on here in the upcoming months. We've decided on 2 pilot sites, one in Las Cruces and one in Portales and Clovis. And these are specific for reentry pilot sites that are required to have case management, housing, and employment as pieces of those reentry pilots. And so to me, that's really just a holistic wraparound model that I'm all for. So I'm excited to be able to test these out. We chose Las Cruces because it's the second largest city with very few resources. And so we have a lot of individuals that are releasing that would want to go back to Las Cruces, but sometimes come to Albuquerque or somewhere else where there's more resources available. So we're looking at Las Cruces for that increase and expansion of new partners and new opportunities for people within Las Cruces. And then Portales and Clovis because of the rural area. And so we're looking at how does virtual options work there? How does telehealth and different opportunities that we can connect with someone in a rural area, what does that look like for reentry? How can we help support those folks? And so these will be pilot sites. We're looking at 10 individuals for each site. And it will ultimately be just really intensive case management, wraparound services, and we're going to work with each individual one-on-one to hope that they can, progress and succeed once they release. Second bullet point is community of practice. We recently, last week, we finished technical assistance through SAMHSA Gaines. We answered a solicitation for community of practice, which honed in and focused on the New Mexico Men's Recovery Academy out of Los Lunas. And so with that, we're really looking at ways to help build infrastructure and standard operating procedures around release and around coordination and working with the individuals across the community. So working with Department of Workforce Solutions on employment assistance, working with housing providers. What does that look like? And so the New Mexico Men's Recovery Academy was chosen as a site. One, they have really high absconding rates once they get to that site. But if they stay and when they stay, they have amazing results in terms of recidivism reduction. And so we're trying to see how can we keep people there so that we can get that end result. And so last week was just a kickoff to the beginning of some technical assistance, which really focuses on housing, peer support, substance use, employment. So all of those factors that we've already covered, but we're getting subject matter expert assistance and just trying to bring anything to the community to help move us forward in any capacity. Third, we've got virtual reality as an upcoming ability, something that's exciting. We went and just got a couple of virtual reality headsets, and what that is really looking at is how can we implement that? How can we supplement what we're currently doing with virtual reality options as well? Looking at mindfulness, meditation, conflict resolution, mock job interviews. So there's a bunch of different opportunities for us to explore. We're in the very much exploration stage of this, but we're really excited about the opportunities to see where that can take us. Working with the substance use programming options, and how do we reduce triggers and look at addiction and impulses. And so that's exciting. And lastly, I wanted to mention the Rethink Adult Ed Challenge. We just got through to the second round. We are one of 4 in New Mexico, I think around one of 93 across the US that got into the second phase. And so what the Rethink Adult Ed Challenge is an opportunity to propose an idea, to propose a program, really to challenge us to think outside the box and and figure out what we want to do differently. And so a great educator at PNM put in a proposal for earth bag structures. And so that would be an apprenticeship program that, as we discussed in the beginning, talking about adult ed, and like career pathways and thinking about learning in a more contextualized manner. The solar earth bags apprenticeship program would incorporate not only, math and literacy, but also construction and solar and electric. And so it would provide individuals that are releasing and that would be able to participate in this program options once they get out. We're working with stakeholders across the state for this, looking at unions and trade associations and different colleges for instruction. And so it's an opportunity for us to get creative, to think outside the box, and to bring new options in. So we're only at the second phase, but hopefully we'll get all the way through. And if not, we have a great foundation to move forward regardless, in terms of a really cool idea for earth bag structures. So with that, I think I am through. I will provide my contact information on the internet, if that makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Wow, what an amazing program the state of New Mexico has put together for corrections. Morgan, we didn't give you anywhere near enough time. We're obviously going to have you back to get into more detail, but the Secretary of Corrections and the governor and the support they're giving you and the enthusiasm and the energy you're bringing to this program is amazing. And just listening to all those programs, no one would ever suspect that so much goes in to the reentry process to ensure that our returning citizens have the best chance to getting back into society, reestablishing themselves with their families, and becoming contributing members, and not going back to that life that so many go back to. We need this program, and our relationship with you we greatly appreciate. And that concludes the portion of the show tonight that's on YouTube. We're now going to close, but for you that are on Zoom, we will continue with a group discussion. Thank you so much for your participation. Good night.